Once a proud centerpiece of the small town, the hospital now stands as a crumbling skeleton of what it used to be. Its windows are shattered, its walls scarred with black soot, and the rusting gates creak even when there's no wind. Officially, the hospital shut down after a tragic accident in the late 1960s when a mysterious fire spread through the upper floors. Dozens of patients, many of them restrained to their beds, never made it out alive. Yet, no one has ever been able to explain how the fire started or why the records surrounding it disappeared from county archives. It was as if the hospital, and the horror that happened there, was erased on purpose. Locals whisper that the place is cursed, and anyone foolish enough to step inside is greeted with something unnatural. The smell of smoke still clings to the air, thick and suffocating, like the fire never truly went out. Graffiti covers the walls, but beneath the spray paint are older markings. Strange symbols scorched into the plaster, as though burned there by hands unseen. Some visitors swear that they've heard the crackling of flames above them, followed by faint coughing and panicked voices crying for help. But when they rush to investigate, the halls are silent, and the air grows even colder. Explorers who dare to enter often describe an unsettling sense of being watched. In the long corridor where the children's ward once stood, shadows sometimes flicker across the walls even though no light source exists. One story tells of a photographer who captured an image of the ward's entrance. When he developed the film, a figure stood in the doorway, wrapped in bandages, its face half melted. The man never returned to the hospital, and when pressed about the photo, he burned it, refusing to let anyone else see. He claimed that simply looking at the figure too long gave him nightmares that didn't end when he woke. There are also stories of rooms that should not exist. One urban explorer reported finding a locked door on the third floor that wasn't marked on any blueprint. Behind it, he swore he heard the sound of someone whispering his name in a hoarse, rasping voice. He ran before opening it, but when he came back with friends, the door was gone, as if it had never been there. Others claim that gurneys move by themselves, wheels squeaking down empty hallways. In one chilling account, a group left their equipment in the hospital overnight, only to return the next morning and find everything stacked neatly in the lobby, covered in ash. Even the firefighters who first responded to the 1960s blaze refuse to speak about what they saw. A retired chief once admitted, after too many drinks, that the bodies they pulled out didn't look burned at all. They looked drained, their faces frozen in silent screams. When pressed for details, he went pale, muttered that the fire wasn't the thing that killed them, and never spoke of it again. Since then, the hospital has stood untouched, a monument to something no one dares to name, its charred halls holding secrets that feel more alive than dead. Hidden deep within the forest, miles from any paved road, stands the remains of a church that time has forgotten. Its roof has partially collapsed, and vines coil around its stone walls as if trying to strangle what's left of it. But the strangest detail, one that every visitor notices immediately, is the missing cross. The steeple rises crookedly into the sky, but where the wooden cross once crowned it, there is only a jagged stump. No one knows when it disappeared, or who might have taken it. Locals insist it wasn't stolen by vandals, but removed deliberately, as though the very symbol of faith was unwelcome there. At night, the ruins take on a sinister quality. The silence of the forest fades when you step inside, replaced by whispers too soft to understand. Many explorers claim the pews remain perfectly aligned, though coated in thick layers of dust. Yet, when they shine their flashlights, they sometimes catch glimpses of shadows sitting in those pews. Rows of figures kneeling, heads bowed, their forms darker than the night itself. The shadows never move, but when the explorers look away and glance back again, the pews are empty, as if the congregation vanished in the blink of an eye. The walls themselves bear disturbing markings. Beneath the peeling paint, strange symbols have been carved into the stone. They are not part of any known scripture or language. Some are circular, others jagged, but all seem to pulse with meaning no one can decipher. Those who've sketched the symbols reported strange side effects: nausea, splitting headaches, and in one case, the uncontrollable urge to return to the church, even after swearing never to go near it again. No one knows who carved them, but some believe the symbols were etched long before the church was even built. Perhaps most unsettling are the sounds that come from the altar. More than one visitor has reported hearing voices chanting in unison, though no words can be made out. The chanting grows louder the closer one steps to the altar, sometimes rising into screams that shake the very air. Yet when the sound cuts off, the silence that follows is even worse. So heavy and suffocating that it feels like the church itself is holding its breath. A few witnesses claim they've seen the altar soaked in something dark, almost like dried blood, though when they returned with others to confirm, the surface appeared clean and untouched. One urban explorer who dared to spend the night there recorded hours of footage on his camera. In the dim glow of candlelight, he spoke nervously of hearing footsteps pacing around him, though no one was visible. The last thing he filmed was a sudden, violent shake of the camera as the candles blew out and the chanting rose again. His camera was later found outside the church doors, smashed and covered in mud, but he was never seen again. His friends searched the woods for weeks, but his body was never recovered. All that remains of him is that final recording, and the church that waits silently in the trees, its missing cross a warning no one seems willing to heed. Along the desolate stretch of Route 27 sits a decaying roadside motel, its paint peeled to gray, its neon sign long since gone dark. Most of the doors hang crooked on their hinges, swinging open to reveal rooms stripped bare by vandals in time. But one door, room 6, remains intact, untouched, and tightly locked. No matter how many decades have passed, no one has ever been able to force it open. Crowbars snap, hinges refuse to budge, and even attempts to break down the wall from the outside fail. The room stands sealed, defying every effort to uncover its secret. Travelers who dare to approach room 6 often report an unnerving sensation the closer they get. The hallway grows colder, the air heavier, as if the very space resists their presence. Some claim the brass number on the door rattles as they draw near, even though no wind touches the building. And then there's the sound. The faint, unmistakable laughter of a child, seeping through the cracks around the frame. It doesn't come all at once, but in bursts: a giggle, a whisper, then silence, as though something inside is waiting for a response. Over the years, countless stories have surfaced about the room's origins. One rumor tells of a family that checked into room 6 in the early 1970s and was never seen again. Police investigated, but the records were vague, missing pages from the guest ledger. Another tale suggests that the room was never built for guests at all, that it was added later, with no plumbing, no wiring, no logical connection to the rest of the structure. The blueprints of the motel show rooms 1 through 5 on the left and 7 through 12 on the right, but no trace of room 6 at all, as if it were never meant to exist. Urban explorers have gone to extremes to document their encounters. One group left a digital recorder pressed against the door overnight. When they played it back, they heard hours of static, interrupted occasionally by faint knocks from inside. But at the 3:13 a.m. mark, the recording captured something clearer. A soft voice, high-pitched, calling one of the explorers by name. None of them could explain how it knew who they were, or why the laughter that followed seemed to echo directly in their ears, even though they were miles away from the motel when listening. Even motel staff from decades past refused to speak openly about Room 6. A former night clerk admitted that whenever he walked past the door, he felt as though someone was standing on the other side, listening. Once, in the dead of night, he heard the handle rattle violently, as if someone inside was desperate to get out. He fled and never returned, swearing that if anyone ever managed to open that room, they would unleash something the motel was built to contain. And so Room 6 remains locked, untouched, and waiting, its secret sealed tighter with every passing year. The old stone bridge stretches across a narrow river on the outskirts of town, its crumbling arches covered in moss and vines. Built in the late 1800s, it once carried horse-drawn carriages and early automobiles. But now it's nothing more than a forgotten relic. Locals call it Whispering Bridge, though no one agrees on when that name first appeared. Some say it was after a young woman leapt to her death there a century ago. Others believe it dates back even further, to a time before the town was founded. Whatever the origin, the bridge has a reputation that keeps most people far away once the sun goes down. At night, those who cross claim the air changes, thick, damp, and unnaturally cold, even in the height of summer. The first sound is usually faint, almost like the rustle of leaves in the wind. But then it sharpens, growing clearer, until the whispers take shape. They are soft, urgent voices that seem to come from just behind you, even when no one is there. Some people hear their names spoken, others hear pleas for help, while a few swear the voices mimic loved ones who've long been dead. Many who experience it run before reaching the other side, unable to bear the unseen presence that follows. One man told of walking across late one evening, only to hear his sister's voice calling from the shadows. The problem was, his sister had drowned in that very river 10 years before. Against his better judgment, he paused, listening. The whispers grew louder, beckoning him closer to the edge. He felt a sudden pressure on his back, a cold hand pushing, though no one was behind him. Terrified, he barely managed to stumble forward and escape, swearing he'd felt the river itself trying to claim him. Since then, he has refused to set foot near the bridge, convinced that it hunts for familiar weaknesses in those who dare to cross. Explorers who try to document the phenomenon often fail. Recorders pick up nothing but static, and cameras malfunction halfway across. One group of investigators claimed they saw figures standing beneath the arches. Tall, faceless silhouettes that dissolved into mist when approached. They left shaken, reporting that one of their team went missing for several minutes, though he insisted he'd only blinked. To this day, he refuses to describe what he saw during that missing time, only muttering that the whispers didn't come from the bridge, but from something waiting below it. The strangest detail is that the bridge itself shows no structural reason for its eerie reputation. Engineers have studied the stonework and found nothing unusual. Yet locals say the structure seems to resist decay. No matter how many storms batter it, the foundation never collapses. Some believe it stands because something wants it to, a passageway not just for travelers, but for voices that should not be heard. And still, on moonless nights, if you stand in the center of the bridge long enough, the whispers begin again, circling you from every side, urging you toward the edge of the dark water below. The elementary school had been abandoned for nearly 3 decades, its windows shattered and its playground rusting away under weeds. Most of the classrooms were stripped bare long ago, chalkboards cracked, desks overturned, and walls peeling with mold. For years, explorers thought they had seen all there was to see, until one night, a group stumbled upon a hidden door behind a collapsed bookshelf in the library. Behind it was a staircase leading down into a basement no one had known existed. It wasn't marked on any school blueprints, and when the town records were checked, there was no mention of it ever being built. The air below was heavy, damp, and suffocating. The explorers' flashlights revealed rows of desks bolted firmly to the floor. But these weren't ordinary desks. Each one had metal restraints attached to the armrests and legs, as though meant to hold children in place. Some of the straps were still worn and frayed, stained with something dark that had long dried. The deeper they went, the more the silence pressed down on them, until suddenly it wasn't silent at all. From the shadows, they heard faint sounds, like whimpering, soft and broken, the unmistakable cries of children. In the far corner of the basement sat a box of old cassette tapes, coated in dust. One of the explorers picked one up and placed it into a handheld recorder they'd brought. The tape hissed with static at first, then came the sound of sobbing, dozens of voices overlapping. And beneath it all was something else. A deep, steady breathing, too close to the microphone. As though, whoever recorded it, it had been standing right behind the children. The group turned off the tape immediately. But the crying didn't stop. It seemed to echo through the room, surrounding them, even though the recorder was silent. When they tried to leave, things got worse. Their flashlights flickered, plunging them into near darkness. One explorer swore he felt a small hand grab his own, squeezing tightly before letting go. Another screamed that she saw figures seated at the desks, their heads slowly turning to face her. In the chaos, they rushed up the stairs, but the door they had entered through slammed shut before they could reach it. For several minutes, they banged against it in terror until, without warning, it creaked open on its own. They fled into the night, leaving their gear behind. Authorities later dismissed the explorers' story, insisting the basement didn't exist. When a local historian checked the site, he found no trace of the hidden door at all. The bookshelf was still standing, untouched, as though the entrance had never been there. Yet the explorers never returned, too shaken by what they had seen. Some of them still wake at night, claiming they hear the sound of children crying beneath their bedroom floors, followed by that same slow, heavy breathing that seems to linger long after they've woken. The textile mill looms over the edge of town, its towering smokestacks rusted and broken, pointing like jagged fingers toward the sky. Once the heart of the community, it closed abruptly in the 1980s without warning. Workers showed up one morning to find the gates chained shut, the inside eerily empty, as if the entire staff had vanished overnight. No official explanation was given. Paychecks stopped coming, and when families pressed the owners for answers, they were told the records of the employees no longer existed. It was as though the factory had swallowed its workers whole. What unsettles locals most is that the factory never truly fell silent. Even decades later, passers-by swear they hear the rhythmic hum of machinery drifting from the windows. Looms spinning, gears grinding, the low rumble of engines long since stripped of power. Urban explorers who have gone inside confirm the same. The factory floor is alive with the sound of industry, though every machine sits still and lifeless. Some claim they can even see the conveyor belts moving in the corner of their eyes, only to find them frozen when they look directly. One group of explorers documented a chilling detail. Fresh bolts of fabric draped over the machines, warm to the touch, as though they had just been produced minutes earlier. The patterns were strange, repeating symbols that no one could identify, woven in threads darker than ink. When they tried to take a piece as evidence, the cloth crumbled in their hands like ash. By the time they returned the next day, the fabric had been replaced by new, unbroken rolls, pristine and waiting. It was as if the factory itself continued working, even without workers, producing material for an unknown purpose. Rumors spread about what happened to the employees. Some say they were forced into the machines, their bodies fueling the mill's eternal production. Others believe the workers never left at all, that their souls are bound to the building, condemned to labor forever. Visitors often describe catching glimpses of figures in the distance, hunched over workstations, moving in mechanical rhythm before fading into the shadows. One explorer swore he locked eyes with a woman standing at a loom. Her face was pale, expressionless, and when he blinked, she was gone, leaving only a length of fabric swaying gently in the still air. Even attempts to demolish the factory have failed. Construction crews reported equipment malfunctioning the moment they approached. Engines stalled, drills broke, and in one instance, a crane operator refused to continue after he heard voices chanting inside the building. He claimed the voices spoke in unison, repeating a word he didn't understand, over and over. The project was abandoned, and the factory still stands, untouched and watching. And sometimes, late at night, the hum of its machines rises above the quiet town, steady and unyielding, as though it is still hard at work on something no one was meant to see. At the very end of Black Hollow Road, where the trees grow thick enough to block out the sun, stands a house that has earned a reputation darker than any legend. From the outside, it looks ordinary enough. 2 stories, chipped white paint, shutters hanging loose. But every family that has ever lived there has met the same fate: sudden disappearances, violent deaths, or tragedies that no one could explain. Locals avoid even driving past it, claiming the house seems to watch them through its empty windows, as if something inside is waiting for the next occupants to arrive. Those who've dared to enter describe an atmosphere so oppressive it feels like walking into water. The air is heavy, every breath a struggle. Clocks brought inside stop working the moment the front door closes, freezing at exactly 3:07 a.m. No matter the time of day. Photographs taken within the house come out warped, faces stretched. figures appearing where no one was standing. Even seasoned paranormal investigators admit that the house drains their equipment, leaving cameras dead and batteries drained in minutes. Whatever lingers, there seems to resist being recorded, as though it doesn't want to be remembered. The most unsettling stories come from those who've stayed overnight. One man claimed that during the night, he heard footsteps pacing up and down the hall outside his room. When he opened the door, no one was there, but the sound continued circling him, pressing closer, until it stopped directly outside his door. Another visitor said she woke to the sound of whispering, dozens of voices overlapping, coming from inside the walls. She swore she felt something tugging at her hair, pulling her toward the floor, as if the house itself was trying to drag her down into the foundations. Stranger still are the accounts of people who never came back out. A team of 3 investigators entered with cameras and microphones, determined to capture proof. Hours later, only 2 stumbled out, hysterical and incoherent, their footage corrupted. The third was never found, though his voice appeared faintly on the damaged audio, screaming for help before cutting to silence. When the surviving 2 were questioned, they refused to speak of what happened inside, repeating only one phrase: "It didn't want us to leave." They vanished themselves weeks later, their car abandoned near the woods, doors wide open. Attempts to demolish the house have failed repeatedly. Contractors refused the job, citing accidents and injuries that happen the moment machinery gets near. One bulldozer operator claimed his vehicle started on its own and rolled backward into a ditch before he ever touched the controls. Others reported hearing a low growl vibrating through the ground as they approached, so deep it rattled their bones. With each failed attempt, the house remained standing, silent but alive, its door slightly ajar, as though inviting the curious to step inside and join the long list of those who never came back. So, what do these abandoned places truly hold? Are they echoes of the past, tragedies burned into the walls and floors? Or are they something much darker, still alive and waiting for the next soul to stumble inside? From the forgotten hospital to the house on Black Hollow Road, each location whispers the same terrifying truth: some places were never meant to be found, and once you step inside, they may never let you leave. So if you ever come across an abandoned building on a lonely road, a church deep in the woods, or a locked door that refuses to open, remember, maybe it's locked for a reason. Because some secrets are not waiting to be uncovered. They're waiting to uncover you.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.